we're going to talk to the sports writer and the author of a brand new book on Jose Mourinho. It's called Jose Mourinho, Up Close and Personal, and the author is the award-winning sports writer Rob Beasley, and Rob joins me now live on Skype. Rob, welcome to Sportuccino.
Thanks, Richard. How are you?
Well, it's great to have you here this morning, Rob. So you've written this book on Mourinho. What would be his thoughts going into a massive game such as a derby against Manchester City? Does he change his preparation for anything like this?
No, the same intensity, the same approach. Obviously, each game you look at the opposition and you tailor a part of your thinking to negating the strengths of the opposition. And that's what Mourinho's tended to be over his career, an expert in highlighting where he perceives there's weaknesses in the opposition, how best to exploit them and to make the most of those weaknesses, but also look at their strengths and dangers in terms of his team to make sure that his players are aware of all the threats that Manchester City, as it is tonight, will pose, what they do, how they like to play, do they go wide or do they come through the middle, who goes right on into his right foot, who prefers to go to the left, all those basic things. Mourinho goes to the nth detail. He gives the players a DVD, he gives them a catalogue of notes on every single player in the opposition team and their strengths and their weaknesses, where to be careful and where to exploit. So no doubt he'll have been preparing for this to the nth degree as well.
Is there any incentive for him that it's against Pep Guardiola?
Well, he hates to lose, whether it's against Pep Guardiola or it's a team from the lower divisions in any other sort of competition. But obviously, there's an extra edge to this one. First of all, it's Manchester United and Manchester City. So you don't really need any more ingredients for a mouth-watering tussle than that. It's in the cup. It could go to penalties and extra time. So it's drama. It's all going to be settled on the night. Somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to lose. But you've got the added ingredient, the added edge, of, if you like, of these two great adversaries, Pep Guardiola and Jose Mourinho, two fantastic coaches, two of the greatest coaches of their generation, both ultra successful, both ultra competitive, and both ultra ruthless as well. You see what Guardiola's done, goes in there. First thing he does is bring in a new goalkeeper and ship Joe Hart out. Yaya Toure, who's been one of the great names, one of the great winners of Manchester City and helping make them a force within domestic football. Both of them gone. And Mourinho does the same. Bastian Schweinsteiger, a German legend, and he's languishing with the kids at Old Trafford. So they know what they want. They know what they're looking for. Both of them searching to get it absolutely right at their new clubs. City started brilliantly. Manchester United started okay, but they've both hit a bit of a wobble since. Manchester United would have been buoyed by that draw at Anfield, where they managed to become the first team to avoid defeat at Anfield with that game where they suffocated the life out of Liverpool. But then they followed it up in the Champions League even better with a 4-0 home win against Fenerbahce. So they would have been looking forward to Chelsea and thinking, let's keep this run going. But the wheels came off spectacularly. And what a place for it to happen. Stamford Bridge, Mourinho's old stamping ground. So that didn't go down well. And City, after all their irresistible form early on, can't get a win for love nor money. And they've hit a bit of a wall. So it's very, very intriguing tonight to see. I think it's going to be a pretty open match. But who's going to come out on top?
So you mentioned the game against Chelsea, and Mourinho seemed to be pretty upset at the end of the game. Have you spoken to him, or do you know a little bit more about potentially what he may have said to Conte at the end, or what do you think would have been his feelings towards Conte's behaviour on the sidelines?
Well, I just thought it was classic Mourinho. I say in the book that one of his tactics, which he uses on a regular basis if his team's played badly, and by golly, did Manchester United play badly against Chelsea. They were behind after 30 seconds, never recovered and were taken to town. So in circumstances like that, if the goalkeeper's made a ricket, the midfielder's been sent off, or a striker's missed a penalty, or a host of sitters a la Fernando Torres at Chelsea, what Mourinho tended to do, and has done this for donkey's years in his career, is make himself the bigger story. So his little spat with Conte was probably very much stage managed. He thought, I need to do something to try and deflect away from my players and how awful they were and how they sort of failed to put into practice what he'd been drilling into them in the preparation. So he manufactures a spat with Conte on the touchline right in front of a television camera and stomps away. And then suddenly, I'm not saying all the attention, but the vast majority of the headlines and the big stories after the match were about Mourinho having a word in Conte's ear and saying he didn't like his touchline antics. And suddenly Mourinho is the story, not how poor Chris Smalling was, not how poor Pogba was, not how poor Ibrahimovic was, not how poor Manchester United were overall, how they were taken to the cleaners. So he deflects attention onto him, and the players, he sort of forms a shield for the players. So all the bullets are going his way, and Pogba, Smalling and the rest of the team get away with it to a certain extent. And of course, they're the ones who have to play. So he's thinking, I'll take all the nonsense, I'll take all the rubbish, I'll take all the chatter in the tabloids and the broadsheets and on the radio and the TV. And that takes the pressure off the players because they've got to perform again tonight against City. And that's a massive, massive game. So it's all, to me, it's manufactured and it's a tactic and it's a deliberate thing to do. Sometimes it's the referee. Sometimes he'll pick on the opposing manager or a player on the other team. It just happened to be Bruno Conte, and it was perfect for him. They went to shake hands. He pulls him close, gives him a tongue lashing in the ear right in front of a TV camera. Classic Mourinho, deflecting attention onto him away from his poor players.
That was part of his success, obviously, throughout his career, in particular at Chelsea. Was it also part of his downfall last season?
Well, I think I remember watching Jose did that something like 7 or 10 minute diatribe after a match once, where, and I think he used the word betrayal. I interviewed him on video in 2013 when he'd first come back. We were in America on tour. It was at the team hotel in Washington, D.C.
That's when he was the happy one, right, Rob?
Yes, yeah. And he was very happy on that occasion. It was a fantastic tour. And they were the nearly men. They were, if you remember that first season back, they were the little horse against two stallions chasing for the league. And they almost pulled it off. But the second season, of course, they were imperious and won it by 8 points. But everything was looking good then. The mood was good. But that third season, you watched Jose, you watched the team, and they were unrecognisable to that all-conquering side that had been so dominant the season before. And I watched the interview with Jose. It was a TV interview, and you could see in his eyes that even he was confused about why it was going so wrong. And he used the word betrayed. And what he meant by that was that a lot of the things that were going wrong were things that they were working on the training ground. And that's his biggest bugbear in football, is that preparing for a match, going through all the schemes on the training field. This is what they do. This is how we cope. This is what you need to do. This is what we need to do. This is how we're going to play. And when the players go out and do not put that into practice after 2-3 days worth of training and preparation, it drives him mad. It's okay, a player making an individual mistake. It's football. These things happen. An amazing piece of brilliant skill by an opponent to score an unbelievable worldly goal. He will not get upset about that. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody produces magic at times that just makes football one of those unpredictable games. So the unpredictability of football, human error, individual brilliance, he can cope with. He can take that on board and he'll just clap and pat them on the back and say, unlucky or brilliant. But things that he's worked on, things that his players have been drilled on over and over again, if in a match they fail to put it into practice, he sees that as betrayal. And he absolutely, utterly hates that. And he was watching this Chelsea team who'd been drilled to do one thing, doing everything but that. He felt completely and utterly let down. And there's no secret now that there was quite a few players who were happy to see him go. And they would have been quite happy on Sunday with a 4-0 scoreline against the manager they fell out with.
Now, you mentioned that's what he likes to do. He likes to get those certain players following his instructions on the training ground. Does he have those type of players at Manchester United?
I think it's still a work in progress, isn't it, Richard? He's the third manager at Manchester United in just over 3 years for a reason. They're not very good. The squad's not very good. First of all, David Moyes comes in, had a terrible one season in charge, but brought players. He went into the transfer market, brought players like Fellaini into the team. Then comes Louis van Gaal. He looks to try and steady the ship, to to reignite Manchester United, get them back into a position where they can challenge for, can you believe this? We're talking about Manchester United trying to get in the top four so they can get back into Europe. You know, this is how far they've fallen away. And of course, he buys players, he spends money. So now Mourinho's coming in. So in 3 years, there's been quite a lot of change and quite a lot of investment at Manchester United. Mourinho comes in, he buys his players, but the ones he's inherited, a lot of them are not the sort of players he would want. They're not the sort of players that he'd use. So I think in the January transfer window, you will see some traffic in and out of Manchester United. He'll be getting rid of some of the deadwood, the people who've got no future with him. And by then he'll know who's with him and who's against him. And he'll also want to recruit Mourinho-style players who will enjoy and be dedicated to playing the Mourinho way. Mourinho's way is dead simple. You put yourself last, you put the team first. You work for the team, you work for the team, you work your socks off, you press, you chase, you close space, you suffocate. You work hard, you show the same intensity in training as you do on the pitch. You forge that us against the world sort of mentality. Just like he did in that Chelsea team, the Frank Lampards, the John Terrys, the Didier Drogbas, the Petr Cechs. You instill that sort of winning attitude into them and this team ethic into them. It's not about Lampard, it's about Chelsea. It's not about Czech, it's about Chelsea. And that's what he's going to instill into Manchester United now. It'll take a little bit of time. It could be by the summer of next year, when he's had another transfer market, so 2 more dips into the transfer market to get players in and out. I think next season is when we will really judge Mourinho. And I've said in the book that I'm tipping him to win the Premier League next season.
Well, that would follow what he did at Chelsea. So that deadwood in January, Rob, does that include Wayne Rooney?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because in that 2013 season when he was first back at Chelsea, he spent virtually the entire summer trying to entice Wayne Rooney away from Manchester United to Chelsea. And it went on and on and on. And it even dragged into the new season. And I remember Manchester United hosted Chelsea in a game, and Chelsea hadn't really got a striker. I think they played Andre Schürrle as a ghost phantom number 9 because he got no faith in the strikers he'd got. And that was sort of a point to Rooney. Rooney had been told by Moyes that he was no longer an automatic first choice as striker, that he was going to go with Robin van Persie. And Mourinho was saying, you won't be second choice anywhere at Chelsea. You'll be my first choice. Come and play at Chelsea. Come and play at Chelsea. And then after that game, 0-0, Mourinho in his after-match press conference said, listen, the time is now to decide. Do you want to stay here? Someone's got to make a decision. We want you. Do you want to come? And of course, a couple of days later, Rooney signed a new extended and improved contract and stayed at Manchester United. So there's no doubt that very recently, Mourinho was a big, big fan of Rooney. The decline of Rooney has been quite dramatic in a very short space of time. It's quite sad. He's sitting on the bench with England. He's sitting on the bench with Manchester United. I'm sure that's doing his head in. It's doing a lot of people's heads in, looking at him. How can a very talented player like that fall so quickly and so dramatically? And I think it's a pace issue. I watched him in the midweek victory over Fenerbahce, and he's touch on the ball, his passing was very, very good. His effort was very, very good. But there was about 3 or 4 occasions where he was one-on-one with a defender and he tried to drop the shoulder and get that extra yard to get a shot away or to get past the man. And every time he was blocked off and caught. And that just didn't happen to Rooney in the past. So it's that explosive acceleration off the mark, which a striker needs to get that even half a yard to get your shot away. It seems to have lost it. So it's a massive conundrum for Rooney. The problem, not just for Mourinho, but for Manchester United, is he's on such a big contract, on such great money, that it would need to be a massive team that would take him. And I can't see him getting a move to another massive team. So it's either a case of Manchester United having to stick with him because they can't get him off the payroll, or having to subsidise any team. Say you went back to Everton, you could see that Manchester United are paying him £180,000 a week to play for another team, and Everton are topping up the rest of his wages. You could see him giving away for free so he can pick up a big signing on fee. But that is going to be a problem because he's a huge player on huge salary, but clearly the wrong side of the mountain. He's on the way down. So who United can sell him to and what they would pay in terms of transfer fee, probably very little. In terms of wages, nowhere near what he's getting. So that's a problem not too far down the line.
And that's something that Manchester City have had to do the last few years, where players such as Adebayor and people like that, who they've had to loan out and then have to pay massive wages still for. So it's not the greatest of business sense. So that Manchester derbies tonight, Rob, where do you see it going?
Well, obviously, I've worked with Jose Mourinho for 12 years, very, very closely. Out of a close professional relationship came a good personal relationship. So I'm very loyal to Jose, and I'm hoping, that home advantage and the result on Sunday will spur him to greater things tonight. But having seen the first meeting between the two earlier in the season, where United were so slow to get out the blocks, and the Manchester City were city slickers. They were quick, they were fast, they were inventive, they were exciting. It looked like men against boys. I'd never seen a Manchester United side look so slow and sluggish and ponderous, and City tore them apart, really. It could have been a much bigger victory than it was. So that's what worries me. City, I do think, have got a better squad, a better system of play, a quicker system of play. And I hope Jose can win, because from a personal link, but with my professional head on, I actually think City could turn United over, and then we're really going to see some headlines.
I think if Iheanacho starts for Manchester City, he's on fire. That could cause United a few problems. Rob, it's been amazing to get your thoughts this morning. Just before you go, maybe give us a bit more information about the book, where we can buy it, and also how we can continue to follow all of your great thoughts on football and everything else on social media, please.
Well, the book is in all good bookshop, so your WH Smiths, your Waterstones. It's available on Amazon, and you can buy it, and you should buy it. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm at Rob Beasley on Twitter. So get in touch. I tend to answer my tweets, not like some people. So if you've got a bone of contention, or you want to say hello, or you want to discuss football, Chelsea, Manchester United, Mourinho, or anything like that, it's at Rob Beasley on Twitter.
Superb. It's always important to be interactive. Well, Rob Beasley, author of Jose Mourinho, Up Close and Personal, and an award-winning sports writer, thank you so much for being on Sportuccino this morning.
My pleasure, Richard. Good luck.